Imagine dangling 2,000 feet in the dead air, swinging like a broken pendulum over a guaranteed drop to your death. Welcome to today's Story Recapped, where a thrilling adventure transforms into a heartbreaking nightmare of absolute injustice. In this ultimate survival summary, two best friends are left stranded on an abandoned tower with no way down, pushing the absolute limits of true heroism and leading to some of the most incredible rescues ever caught on film. Will it end in pure karma or total despair? Hit that subscribe button and comment below with your thoughts right now, because this story will leave you absolutely breathless. Swaying back and forth like a ruined playground swing. A fall meant certain death for her. Gripping the line with everything she had, Hunter desperately tried hauling Becky up, but her foot slipped on the metal. The violent drop caused Becky to shriek in pure panic. Luckily, Hunter managed to stabilize her footing. Combining their efforts, one pulled up while the other climbed. Following a brutal struggle, Becky scrambled back onto the platform safely. Yet before catching their breath, they uncovered an even greater disaster. Glancing downward, they were completely paralyzed with fear. The entire ladder structure had detached and crashed to the earth. They were now stranded atop an isolated antenna tower without a single rung to get back down. Hunter pulled out her device to seek assistance, but the altitude meant zero reception. Rummaging through the platform's supply box, they discovered a pair of binoculars alongside a flare pistol and some rounds. Right then, Hunter noticed a crucial detail. Her earlier upload from the base had surpassed 300 likes, meaning cellular service existed just slightly. Further down, drafting an emergency text, she tied the device to a cord and carefully dropped it over the edge. Sadly, the line fell short. No confirmation sound ever echoed back up. Hunter then made an incredibly risky choice. Stepping outside the protective railing, she lowered herself down the damaged framing, hanging completely exposed in the open air. It still wasn't low enough. She recklessly released one hand, attempting to dangle the device just a fraction lower. Becky could barely watch from the sheer panic. Hunter's muscles were failing fast, but "Hold!" Hunter spotted a figure moving near the base through her lenses. The pair grew incredibly frantic, screaming for assistance at the top of their lungs, but the distance proved far too vast. The traveler below remained entirely oblivious. Even worse, he turned to walk away. Desperate, Becky ripped off her footwear and hurled it downward. It struck the dirt hard, yet the traveler never noticed. She threw her remaining shoe. This time, it slammed against a steel support, creating a sharp echo. The traveler stopped and searched the area. He retrieved. Hold. Hunter spotted a figure moving near the base through her lenses. The pair grew incredibly frantic, screaming for assistance at the top of their lungs, but the distance proved far too vast. The traveler below remained entirely oblivious. Even worse, he turned to walk away. Desperate, Becky ripped off her footwear and hurled it downward. It struck the dirt hard, yet the traveler never noticed. She threw her remaining shoe. This time it slammed against a steel support, creating a sharp echo. The traveler stopped and searched the area. He retrieved the shoe, but strangely, his eyes never scanned upward. Seeing nobody around, he carelessly dropped the footwear and kept moving. The girls felt completely shattered by the near miss. Becky grabbed the flare pistol, preparing to fire, but Hunter held her back. The daytime glare was too intense. A fiery signal would go unnoticed in the sunshine. Hunter then pointed out an RV parked nearby. She reasoned the traveler was there to camp and wouldn't depart immediately. Becky agreed to bide their time until darkness finally fell. Aiming skyward, they discharged the flare. The brilliant spark illuminated the darkness. Thankfully, the camper spotted the glowing streak. Utilizing the lenses, they observed him staring directly up at their position. Hunter and Becky screamed with pure delight. They believed help was finally on the way, but the subsequent events shattered their sanity. They watched the camper approach their vehicle, gripping a heavy tire iron. He shattered their passenger window without a second thought. The girls stomped in absolute panic from above. He then forced the door open and climbed inside. The motor turned over. He was hijacking their ride. The helpless girls watched their final chance at survival drive over the horizon, abandoned atop a massive metal spire, feeling entirely forsaken by humanity. Now their solitary hope rested on the criminal feeling guilty and contacting authorities. They remained awake until the following dawn, but no flashing lights appeared. This situation was unsustainable. They hadn't consumed a drop of moisture in over 24 hours. Salvation rested entirely on their own hands. Hunter decided to execute a terrifying gamble. Fastening her tether, she prepared to retrieve the supply bag caught on a satellite dish below. Despite Becky crying out for her to stop, Hunter stubbornly pushed forward. Securing one end of her line to a post, she carefully eased herself over the platform edge. Inch by inch, utilizing the metal lattice to steady her weight. Suddenly, her grip failed, and she fell swinging into space, suspended by the cord. She fought wildly to steady her body, then meticulously resumed her downward descent. Yet upon reaching the end of her tether, the bag remained far out of reach. She attempted, shifting her weight sideways, straining with one arm, but it failed. Above, Becky was hyperventilating. She implored Hunter to return, but Hunter devised a far more reckless stunt. She unhooked her safety harness, leaving herself entirely unprotected. Gripping the line with a single hand, she extended her body toward the backpack. She rocked back and forth over the abyss. Failing to reach it, she kicked hard against the support structure, gaining massive momentum, then calculated the arc, threw her legs forward, and let go. It was terrifying, but miraculously, she touched down perfectly onto the satellite dish. Hunter instantly snatched the gear and immediately unzipped it to find the water container. She drank down a massive gulp while Becky watched from above, dry-throated and envious. The supplies were secure, but Hunter lacked a path back up. Slowly rising to her feet, balancing precariously on the metal dish, trying to reduce the gap to the dangling line, she extended her right arm, but missed it by inches. She then formulated a clever trick. Backing up, she pulled her selfie stick from the gear, utilizing it to catch the rope loop. Extending her reach, she tried dangling the backpack onto the line's loop, but the weight proved excessive. She tried repeatedly, failing every single time. Just as hopelessness set in, she finally hooked the handle onto the carabiner, providing just enough reach to seize it. Hunter squatted down, locked her eyes onto the bag, and leaped. She intercepted it mid-air. Becky gasped in absolute horror from above, then immediately grabbed the line and pulled with all her might. Simultaneously, Hunter ascended rapidly, scaling the rope hand over hand. Within moments, she neared the very top of the spire. Now, she simply required a grip on the remaining ladder to find safety. But right at that precise second, disaster struck. Hunter's muscles completely failed. She lost her hold and plummeted downward. Becky had to haul her up single-handedly. It seemed completely impossible, but she shook off the panic, planted her legs firmly against the frame, and strained against the line with absolute desperation. With one final massive heave, she dragged Hunter back onto the platform. The gear came up as well, housing the fluid and the drone. Becky lost no time. She unscrewed the liquid container and drank furiously like her survival mattered on it. It provided the primary comfort in 48 hours. They then rifled through the bag once more and retrieved the quadcopter. Becky discovered a dining voucher inside the pocket. She utilized a makeup pencil to write a distress note on the blank backing. They attached the message onto the drone and prepared to pilot it toward the distant rest stop. All was prepared. Becky operated the remote and it lifted off flawlessly. It raced rapidly and smoothly toward the far-off motel, but before covering the distance, the cells drained. If the drone plummeted now, their final opportunity would shatter. Becky had to reverse it right as the motors died. She reached out and snatched it at the absolute last second. Yet with a dead battery, sending their distress message remained impossible. Plunging back into despair, their eyes caught the flashing warning beacon atop the structure. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could splice it to power the drone. Becky grabbed the gear and initiated another climb. Utilizing every limb, she meticulously scaled toward the absolute peak. Once, perched, she unscrewed the housing and pulled the illumination bulb. She connected the battery charger, and to her amazement, current flowed. Becky was ecstatic. She remained completely motionless, sitting frozen for 2 agonizing hours until the drone finally registered a full charge. When Becky scrambled back to the deck, she didn't waste a second. She instantly launched the quadcopter, directing it straight toward the settlement. Soon, rooftops materialized on the monitor. She merely needed to reach a populated area. Someone would spot the message attached to the frame. Becky couldn't contain her rising joy, but right as the drone crossed the highway, a semi-truck roared past and pulverized the quadcopter to dust. Becky froze in utter disbelief. She couldn't accept the horrific luck. Success had been within reach. She watched the operator pull over to investigate. If he spotted the note, hope still lived. But the driver overlooked the shattered plastic. He scanned the road, noticed nothing, climbed back inside his rig and accelerated away. Becky collapsed into heavy weeping. This was the end. She had surrendered completely. However, the nightmare was about to worsen drastically. Turning her head toward Hunter, Hunter slowly shifted her gaze, revealing a gruesome, decaying facial laceration. Becky gasped in absolute horror. Instantly, the terrifying reality manifested. Hunter had perished the moment she struck the satellite dish. She never survived that plunge. Becky had been dreaming up her presence the entire duration. Only the supply bag had been hauled up, not her friend. Since that moment, Becky had been entirely isolated on the tower, conversing with a ghost. She slumped onto the grating, losing consciousness entirely beneath the scorching sun. Suddenly, a scavenging vulture descended and tore at her bleeding leg. But Becky slowly opened her eyelids, fixed her eyes onto the predator, and clamped her fingers around its throat. The scavenger thrashed violently, but Becky, starved and feral, managed to pin it down. She then began consuming it raw. She felt no disgust. A singular instinct remained: survive at all costs. Following the meal, Becky unfastened her lifeline. She descended the surviving ladder segment and secured the line to the lowest bracket. Dropping the remaining length of rope, she gripped it tight and slid down rapidly. This time, all hesitation vanished. Her actions were precise and resolute. She reached the bottom of the line instantly, unclipped her harness, and dropped onto the dish. Staring at Hunter's lifeless body, a wave of grief washed over her. Yet her subsequent action was completely shocking. She composed a text to her father pleading for rescue, despite lacking any cellular service. She then removed Hunter's sneaker, forced the phone inside, and jammed it deep within Hunter's open torso cavity through the tear. With the package secured, Becky delivered one powerful shove, sending the remains plunging 2,000 feet down to the desert floor, utilizing the flesh and footwear to absorb the shattering impact. The device would endure, and upon striking the earth, reception would return, launching the text out. Back home, her dad, James, viewed the notification. He contacted emergency services instantly and sped to the site. Becky was finally saved. The moment Becky spotted her father, she sprinted directly into his embrace, weeping uncontrollably.